You ever look at Link and be like, what is this guy thinking? Now, Link might not give us a whole lot of verbal cues to know what he's thinking, but he does do quite a few things. And you know what they say, actions speak louder than words. So let's take a moment, let's try to figure out what kind of actions, how they line up with real world philosophies, and see if there's anything of substance there. All right, so let's start with our hero, Link. What does he believe? What do you think he believes? Well, first of all, he's certainly a monarchist. There's really no getting around this. Not only does he immediately run to the castle and completely bow down for the princess, but even after he saves the world from the great evil Ganon, he becomes a royal guard for the royal family. So this isn't a guy who's like, oh, let's team up with the monarchy so that we can, beat out the worse or evil. No, this guy is, diehard love letters to the king. So that's the first thing. Second is he almost certainly believes in the divine right of kings, okay? Princess Zelda was ordained by the gods to rule, and he acknowledges this. In fact, he was given a Triforce as well. He doesn't rule like Princess Zelda, but Princess Zelda was given the Triforce of Wisdom, and this is pretty similar, if not the exact same thing as the divine right of kings, so I'm putting it in there. Third thing is he certainly believes in the usefulness of violence in order to carry out one's will. In fact, there are only very few times when you actually want to use stealth in this game, and it's not even really stealth. I mean, Link doesn't think that this game is like, Metal Gear Solid or anything like that, and he seems pretty open about that. So he believes in using violence, and he believes in the monarchy. You see maybe where I'm going with this? Fourth thing is that evil exists in this world, and it's very obvious, okay? From the very start of the game, the very first time that we see Ganondorf, he is obviously the bad guy. We, as a child, can identify him as somebody who is a problem and needs to be taken care of. And that's the whole plot of the game. I mean, if you didn't recognize that immediately, if you saw Ganon in the first couple scenes and you thought, well, maybe he's all right, he's gonna do okay things. I mean, the second that you become an adult, you recognize that he just ruined everything. So evil is obvious. Link was right from the very beginning. And that leads me to the final point, which is that peace is achieved through identifying evil early and dealing with it swiftly. So again, evil's obvious, and none of this happens if we can just identify Ganon as a bad actor and remove him earlier than the events of adult Link, for example. So that's his worldview as I see it. Obviously, there's some other things in there, like Link believes in ghosts because he sees them. He also believes in saints, it seems. And I'd say he also believes that the best life is probably lived out on a farm somewhere outside the city walls. I don't really know how those tie in, but let's just stick with the core ones first, and then we'll maybe tie those in later on. All right, well, you probably saw the thumbnail, you probably saw the title, so you probably have an idea of where I'm going with this, but you probably want to know, hey, how are we going to tie this into Italian fascism? And I'm glad you asked. His name is Machiavelli. You might have heard of him. He is a very famous Italian politician that was put into exile in 1513 and wrote some of the most famous words that have ever been used to justify anything, and that is, the ends justify the means. Now, as it happens, he also believed in nearly all these things that Link believed in. He wrote quite a few books, and his philosophies eventually became what we now refer to as Italian fascism. So all of the fascists that came in the later 20th century, a lot of them were drawing on the original works of Machiavelli. Okay, so just to quickly go over some of the things that he believed. First of all, we already mentioned it, the ends justify the means. He believed that rulers, in particular, could use any means necessary, particularly violence, to make sure that they could maintain their borders and keep political stability within their populace. All right, so pop quiz, where do you think we're going with this? I think it's kind of obvious at this point, but Machiavelli was also a very big proponent of making sure that we nip the evildoers in the bud so that they don't do more evil. It's better for us to deal with wrongdoers swiftly so that we don't have a bigger problem down the road. Now, think about all the things that we've said about Link. Ocarina of Time is practically just a big allegory for making sure that we deal with the evil that's in this world before it gets out of control. In fact, the good ending of all the Link timelines is the one where Link manages to go back in time, thwart Ganon, and throw him into the Twilight Zone. If that isn't, I don't know, if that isn't an advocation for, Machiavellian realism, I don't really know what else could be. So does that make Miyamoto a fascist, or an Italian fascist, or a Machiavellian, or just somebody who likes that kind of history? That's up for you to decide. I'm not going to speak on that, I think I've made my case. I don't necessarily think that he was trying to make this point. However, it is, ironically, a very good point to be made, and I think that the story actually really works in its favor. I don't think that there's very many other lessons to take other than the best thing for you to do is to never have Ganon take over in the first place. And that's a obtainable future for Link. So this is the part where I could go on and on about Machiavelli and his books. The Prince in particular, I have a lot of things to say about it. But not really sure if that's where we want to go with this. I am really curious to hear your thoughts on this and if I am onto something or not. If you have other names to call me, that's fine. Just do it in the comments, and I think this way is one of the coolest things about being a human, is that you can communicate like this. So with all that said, I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if this is something interesting for you, because that helps me understand what you guys want. And I look forward to talking to you next time.